Alex,
Hey,
we're
David.
talking. Hey, we're talking about meditation today, which is something you've been on two episodes of On Our Minds Only already, and it's meditation. I think cropped up in it definitely cropped up in at least one, if not two of the those episodes. I've got to admit, whenever I hear the word meditation, I can't help picturing someone probably in an idyllic landscape, a beach or something like that, sitting in the uh, lotus position, I think it's called, and then they've kind of got their hands up a little bit like
Yeah.
this, and there's like sound of waves in the background, or whale song, or some plinky plonky piano music, and it's like and breathe and all that kind of thing, and
Om.
boom, exactly that. But I remember I said something similar on a previous episode, and you were like, that's not really meditation. And ever since then, it's played on my mind a bit. And
Yeah.
as these things always do with me, funnily enough, for an episode all about meditation and thoughts and everything else. But would you like to kind of set the record straight on meditation? Is that anywhere close to what meditation really is?
I mean, it's a little aspect of it, but it's like a tiny,
Okay.
tiny aspect of it. A lot of it came up with the episode we did on anxiety,
Yes.
because meditation was one of the ways I've used to manage my anxiety
Hmm.
and still use to manage my anxiety. I mean, it's still you know, probably one of the main, if not the main tool in my toolbox to manage anxiety.
Mm.
And if people do have issues with anxiety, insomnia, that's why it also came up with
Yeah.
insomnia. So if we put anybody to sleep with this talk today, we did our job. We did a good job. It worked. But no, but really it is a great tool for managing anxiety, for dealing with things like insomnia, for dealing with a host of sort
Mm.
of issues like that, depression as well. And and it's connecting it to bond very loosely. It is a taught tool to special forces.
Mm.
Special Forces, FOS, and I would assume SBS, SAS, Delta Force, Navy SEALs.
Hmm.
They are taught a type of breathing exercises that it comes from meditation. One of the meditations called box breathing that I've used to handle, severe stressful situations,
Hmm.
of which I'm sure they find themselves in many. So it is a huge, huge antidote to stress as
Yeah.
well.
Trust me,
But what
there's going to be loads of connections to Bond. I've gone back, like I always do for these episodes. I've gone back through Fleming trying to find evidence of meditation, and I think I've found some examples. I so we'll come to those in just a second. But it's funny you mentioned breathing because when I was looking through Fleming, I particularly latched onto examples of Bond being really conscious of his breathing, and there's a really and that's really I think that's a really important part of meditation. Again, I'm talking as a non-expert here. I'm bringing the bond, you're bringing the meditation science today. But from my very limited understanding, isn't it something rooted in the idea that our physical sensations like breathing are linked to the things that we think, the things that we feel, and the things that we do? Aren't all those things kind of connected to each other?
Yeah, it's very, very much a strong part of the mind-body connection. Let me go back a little ways. So, how this all started for me was I started training in Kung Fu
Mm.
in 1996. Now, I had always been doing martial arts since I was a little kid. I was bullied as a kid, so my
Hmm.
mom put me into a Taekwondo class. And from there, I also had done in high school some judo, and then in college, Shotokan karate. I fenced throughout. I was a fencer throughout into high school and college. But martial arts were always a part of my life. And but as a kid, there was a TV show in the United States in the 1970s called Kung Fu, starring David
Mm.
Carradine. And in that show, he was a Buddhist monk. He was like a half Chinese, half Caucasian kid who got thrown into the Buddhist monastery, and he was raised by Buddhist monks, and he was taught kung fu in a Shaolin monastery, which is what's done in the Shaolin monastery. And part of it was also meditation in the show. So
Right.
I knew that in Kung Fu and primarily in Chinese martial arts, meditation is a part of it. And and actually, in most Chinese, I should stress, Chinese martial arts, meditation, including sitting meditation, is 50% of your martial arts training.
Wow.
50%. Half of what you do is considered meditation. So when I was doing all these other martial arts, I wasn't getting any of that.
Mm,
And then just to reiterate, as I was growing up, I suffered from anxiety. What do you call it? Anxiety attacks,
hmm
where I would, hyperventilate, and my heartbeat would start, and I'd have to sit down and breathe and try to get over it. I didn't know exactly what was going on at the time. I didn't know they were anxiety attacks, but that's what they were. And so when I was looking for, so even though I had done karate as a kid and taekwondo, I knew I wanted Chinese martial art. I knew I
hmm
wanted kung fu, partially because of the TV show, but also I knew there was this meditative aspect to it that was a part of it that wasn't found very strongly in the other martial arts.
mm,
And it was sort of that aspect of it that separated it from other martial arts. And it was that aspect of it
mm,
that somehow I instinctively knew as a child I needed that.
mm,
I needed that part of it. There was this sort of, I don't want to say it was magical aspect to it, but it was definitely it distinguished it from the other martial arts. And it was that part of it that I was looking for. Now, when I found Tiger Claw, which is the martial art that I found in 1996 and still do to this day and teach, I'm now a teacher in Tiger Claw Kung Fu. It's called Fu Jiao Pai in Cantonese. Um, it really wasn't from my teacher didn't really know that much about meditation, and it wasn't very stressed in that, and it was a part of that aspect that was kind of lost over the decades that it transferred from China to New York City. So I wanted it. However, in when you practice Chinese Kung Fu, a big part of it is called a big part of the martial art is forms, doing forms. So you're doing all these, you've seen Tai Chi, they
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and in Kung Fu, karate they have simple ones, but in Kung Fu they're very elaborate, and you're doing all these choreographed forms of the that demonstrates the martial art. Now,
Mm,
in that's the 50% that I got from those classes
right.
because they are used as moving meditations. They're you can't learn kung fu from just doing the forms. They're not going to teach. That's not going to teach you how to fight. What it's
Mm,
going to teach you is how to connect your mind and body,
okay.
how to be aware of your
hmm
posture, aware of your movements, aware of your balance, aware of the how you generate power, from where you generate power, and how fast and how strong and precisely the direction you generate that power. So that's what the forms teach you. They teach you awareness.
Yes.
Ultimately, meditation, sitting meditation, whether you're doing it like this, or or whatever, it's teaching you awareness. What
Okay.
meditation really is in
hmm
its fundamental core is awareness training.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
So,
if I so a lot of that really resonates with me, not the kung fu part. I've never studied martial arts, but like you, I've had significant bouts of anxiety. In fact, probably anxiety constantly throughout my life, but definite spikes. And when I went through a really bad patch of it a few years ago, I did have the panic attacks. And one of the things that helped me address that was being really aware of what was actually causing those panic attacks. So I would wake up at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, my heart racing, beating out my chest, unable to get back to sleep until I recognized that what was actually triggering that physical sensation was a thought that had gone off in my head while I was sleeping. It might have happened in a dream, or my brain does this thing where I'm sure lots of other people do this. It does a lot of thinking overnight. It's like a computer when it's downtime, and it comes up with lots of creative ideas, but sometimes I just want it to shut off and let me go back to sleep. But if I was going through a really bad patch at the time, something I couldn't control, which is always massive for me, and I knew I couldn't control it, and I kept thinking, I can't control this, I can't control this. And it kept making my heart race and the adrenaline flow. I was in fight or flight most of the time, all of that. But then when I actually started to recognize that the thoughts were causing that, but I couldn't actually do anything about that. The situation was something I couldn't actually control. I then started reading up a little bit about meditation, and particularly things rooted in cognitive behavior therapy. And I started recognizing that actually I can choose to let go of that thought or hold on to that thought. And that for me was fundamental. Actually being aware of what was going on in terms of my body and my mind actually helped me then deal with that. Is that, am I sort of on the right lines? Please feel free
Yeah.
to tell me
I
I'm
mean,
wrong.
no, that's the beginning of it. I mean, what's
Mm.
interesting between you and me is ha- I was having those panic attacks in the late 90s as
Mm.
much as I had ever had. And about, I want to say about a year or maybe somewhere between a year or 2 years or a year and a half into my Kung Fu training, I got a couple of panic attacks in the Kung Fu class, where I had to sit down, put myself to the side and calm myself down. But then after about a year and a half or so, they went away. I mean, they
Yeah.
completely went away. They never
Mm.
have never come back. Years later, and I'm talking about like a decade or more
Mm.
later, I was in a therapist's office and I was describing what that I used to have these episodes, and she, even I didn't know at the time, even at that time, I didn't know those were panic attacks. And she goes, "No, those are classic panic attacks you were having.
Mm.
Those are textbook." And I said, "Well, then a year and a half into my Kung Fu training, it went away." And she goes, "That makes a lot of sense." And I'm like, "Why?" She says, "One of the best way to get rid of panic attacks is meditation and exercise."
Mm.
What is Kung Fu but meditation with exercise? You cured yourself from an ailment you didn't know you had with a cure you didn't know that you could use. It was a complete serendipitous thing that happened. So yeah, and we've discussed this before on the
Mm.
anxiety episode, that exercise and meditation are two ways to manage panic attacks and especially anxiety. So the fact that you knew that you were having panic attacks and you knew that this was the cause, you were already a step ahead of me,
Right. Okay.
because having that awareness already brings you to the first you've
Mm.
achieved the first level
Okay.
of dealing with your panic attacks and with your anxiety. Now the next level is to, now what do you do? What are the tools
Yes.
that you have in your drawer to handle this stuff? And that's when you have, and there's quite a few, but that's the next step, is
You
to
mentioned,
understand.
was it, do you call it four corners? I've heard it referred to as
Yeah,
other
but four
things as
corners,
well.
box breathing. That's
Yeah.
when you usually it's about a count of four.
Yeah.
So you
I
count
was,
one, two,
I
three,
was going to
four,
say,
and
if people
then
actually want to try this out right now and you're watching the YouTube version of this, if you're not watching the YouTube version, if you're listening to the podcast, then just find something
okay.
that's roughly square or rectangular.
Well, I think,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Throughout our discussion, we'll actually do some meditation.
So do you want to lead us? I feel confident-ish doing box breathing. I've actually done this with children in my
Mhm.
professional life. Children who've been having panic attacks. I've literally gone, right, find something
Yeah.
square, and across one of the four edges, breathe in for 4 seconds.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then as you go down, I want you to breathe out for 4 seconds. And then as you
Mhm.
go along the bottom, breathe in again. And then the last side of the square, rectangle, window, door, whatever you want to use, breathe out again, and
Hmm.
that's brought those children down because they've
Hmm.
actually remembered to breathe. I'm terrible for it myself. A lot of the times, I'll be aware that I'm feeling on edge because I've actually stopped breathing. I actually hold my breath a lot. I've realized, and especially when I'm concentrating really hard on something, I'll hold my breath. So actually, I never even realized that until even a couple of years ago. But that for me, the box breathing was a bit of a game changer for me.
Well, this is going to be a real game changer. It was part of that's one way of doing it.
Mm,
The classic way of doing it, and the one they teach to special forces is you
mm,
actually do hold your breath.
mm.
So what you do, and let's do it. So let's do it.
Okay, let's
Ready?
do it. Yeah, go
So
on then.
you don't have to use a box. You can just count. I just
Okay.
generally count. But you breathe in for 4 seconds. Breathe in, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe in for 4 seconds. And that's the classic way of doing it. So
Really?
you you breathe in for 4, hold your breath for 4, breathe out for 4, hold your breath for 4, because you have to breathe in and hold your breath with your air full of lungs. You breathe out and you hold your breath with no air in your lungs.
Mm.
And what that's doing is also it's getting you used to stress.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the reasons why that they use it for the special forces. It also like acclimates themselves to stress. Because holding your breath without air in your lungs, you can actually, it's a little stressful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
A little
definitely.
stressful. So by doing that, and you don't have to do it for very long. You do it, they don't recommend you do it for very long, maybe, 8 to 10 times, really, is all you need. That's another way of doing the box breathing.
I think
And
I
you,
might have I think I might have found not a box breathing example specifically, but I think I found an example there is in Fleming of where Bond actually shows signs of having been taught something similar, or at least he's aware of the connect of why the breathing is so important. So
Mhm.
if I just read this little bit from The Man with the Golden Gun, and you can tell me whether you think this is kind of in the kind of realm of meditation. So if you've not read the book of the Man with the Golden Gun, it ends with
Yeah.
a mano a mano fight, like the film does, but it's a far kind of down and dirtier fight. There's no fun house or anything. It's actually in a mangrove swamp. So
Hmm.
Bond is chasing. He's exhausted by this point, but Bond is chasing Scaramanga through the swamp, and Fleming writes, he shook his head angrily. He took several very deep, slow breaths. He knew the symptoms. This was nothing worse than acute nervous exhaustion, with, he gave himself that amount of grace, a small fever added. All he had to do was to keep his mind and his eyes in focus. For God's sake, no more daydreaming. With a new, sharpened resolve, he kicked the mirages out of his mind and looked at his geography. Does that sort of fit within the realm of meditation for you?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, taking those deep, slow, mindful breaths,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, to try to calm your nerves and try to sort of reset,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, from whatever, chaos is ensuing. It gives you
Mm.
a sort of a chance to reset. So that's definitely that's definitely, yeah, so somewhere in there. I don't know for a fact back then if soldiers were taught this or not.
Mm.
I would think that, why not? The funny thing about the Ian Fleming is that he did have martial art experience.
Mm.
He was taught, he did, I don't know how extensive it was. He was in a karate class for a bit. So I know when you read Goldfinger, there's a lot of martial arts in that
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of good martial arts knowledge and a lot of martial arts knowledge that's so on the point that he definitely had some experience. There's no way
Mm.
he could not have experience and write what he wrote in that book about martial arts and everything. And also spending time in the East, you get exposed to it as well. If you spend any time in the East, especially in Japan, Zen Buddhism is, quite pervasive there. There are many Zen Buddhist temples and
We're talking about using meditation almost as a way to give you an advantage or a survival tool here.
Mhm.
I suppose in a sense it can still be a survival tool even if you're not placed in those, very physically stressful situations. I'm thinking of those times in Bond, which I can certainly relate to, where he has quite intrusive thoughts. I think probably the most famous example and one of my favorite examples is at the opening of Goldfinger when the opening sentence of that book is James Bond with two double bourbons inside him sat in the final departure lounge of Miami Airport and thought about life and death. And that pretty much that whole first chapter of Goldfinger is Bond trying to tell himself to stop being morbid.
Mhm.
And actually, he sort of has to shake himself out of it rather than say sitting with the feeling and just kind of letting it go by. He almost
Well,
because
that's what the alcohol was for.
and that's it. And talk of avoidance, using the booze. So instead of actually, he can't deal with the thought. It's causing him so much stress thinking about having killed this guy that actually he's drinking a lot and he's also having to shake himself out of it. So if James Bond was better at meditation, would he be able to, because this is something that I've taken away from what I've read up about meditation, because if you, in those moments where you feel really, your heart's pounding, your thoughts are whirring, you feel horrible, actually watching the thought kind of almost go past you without actually involving it. There's a technique that I use quite a lot, which is recommended by a lot of cognitive behavioral therapist practitioners, which is called the thought train, where you picture yourself standing on a train platform and you watch the train arrive, and the train is your thought in this metaphor. Bear with me, and then you can choose to engage with the train to get on board that train and follow that thought, or just like a train you're not getting on, you can just let the train leave the platform and the thought will go, and you don't have to, not going to judge it, you're not going to attach any kind of value to it, and you can just watch it go. I must say, the first time I heard about this, that I thought this is never going to work, but I practiced it quite a lot for several months, and actually it's even more than the breathing, it's kind of my go-to technique for trying to stay in the moment and not let my thoughts go off into the past or the future and everything I'm worrying about, because I'm a worrier about most things. So have you ever used that technique or anything like that?
Well, can I ask you, did you come up with that metaphor or was that taught to you?
No, that was taught to me.
Okay, because that's you pretty much is very similar to the way I describe it, but that's it. That is meditating.
Oh,
So
okay.
a lot, yeah. So a lot of people, it's very interesting when I tell people. So I'm going to go back a little bit again. So when I started Kung Fu and I wasn't really getting the sitting meditation from there, there was a Buddhist monastery about a half an hour north from where I live, and called Zhuangyan Monastery, and they had open meditation for non-Chinese English speakers,
Mm,
and because it was primarily a Chinese Buddhist monastery, and the monk would sit there and teach in English meditation classes on Sunday mornings, and I went up there for years, and so I have been meditating regularly probably close to 26, 27 years now.
mm,
So about a couple of years after I started Kung Fu, I always knew about Zhuangyan, but then I found out they had open meditation classes, so I started taking there every week. And I pretty much went regularly up until about maybe 10 years ago. And now I do it mostly on my own. But what you were describing was also very similar to what the monks described.
mm,
And it was also, and then eventually I became at Drangyan, I became like a quote unquote tour guide. But I would also, as a tour guide, teach them about meditation and about the meditation class. Now I'm not a trained meditation teacher, so I can't, so I'm not claiming that I'm not a licensed, or is there a license? I know there's a certificate. I'm not a certified meditation teacher. I am a certified Kung Fu teacher. That's good. But not a certified meditation teacher. Although I've been doing it for myself for, yeah, well, past almost 3 decades now, closing in on 3 decades. What you described as the train is very similar to how I describe it. Now, like was saying before, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I can't meditate because I can't stop the thoughts in my head." And I'm like, well, you're not supposed to stop your thoughts in your head. That's called death.
Mm, mhm,
Even Buddha probably didn't stop the
mhm.
thoughts in his head. That's not a thing per se.
And the
There
more
is
you
a
try
thing.
to, and the more you try to stop them, the worse it tends to
Oh
get.
yeah. Then you get into what the Buddhists call monkey mind, when
Oh,
your brain is just bouncing all over the
oh, I
place.
like that. Yeah, I'll think
Yeah.
about that the next time that happens.
Yeah, then when you stop trying to when you try to stop the thoughts, you get into monkey mind and your brain starts bouncing all around. And a lot of people claim, "Oh, I have too much, let's say, monkey mind," and they can't, the thoughts, they can't control the thoughts in their head.
Mm,
Now that's a difference. Stopping and controlling are two different things.
yes.
So, like I said, when people say I can't meditate because I can't stop the thoughts in my head, I would say to them, that is not meditating. That's not the point.
Mm, mm,
Think of your thoughts like a river. Most of us are in the river getting carried away by the current. Meditation is coming out of the river, sitting on the bank of the river, and watching the river go by. The only difference is the thoughts are still there. You're just watching the thoughts. You're aware of the
mm,
thoughts, but you're not in the thought getting carried away by it. It's almost like passively watching television. Your
mm.
train metaphor is perfect. Your train
It's
metaphor is exactly the same thing.
I cannot claim credit for it. It is in a lot of CBT literature, which I
Yeah,
consumed loads of when I was going through a hard time about 3, 4 years ago.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I saw that analogy used quite a lot. It's quite interesting you that say though about water as another metaphor for that experience as well, because my other favorite instance in Bond, and again, it must be said, I am using examples from the novels here because I'm really struggling to find examples of where Bond does anything approaching meditation in the films because film is a very visual medium. It's very cause and effect, and Bond keeps moving all the time. There's clearly moments in the films where he is ruminating, particularly in the Daniel Craig films, where he's really thinking hard about things. You can see it on his face. But that's, he's perturbed by those thoughts. So he's not really doing anything that's kind of vaguely meditation like, I don't think. But
Mhm.
it's the opening of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. The novel is another of my favorites, where he's watching the ocean. But then that sparks off a thought of what it was like to be a child and making sandcastles on the beach, and it
Mhm.
actually starts to make him really upset. And then, but again, he's sort of I don't know whether it's probably not letting it go because he says he slammed the mawkish memories back into their long closed file. So he's judging that thought. He's going, "This is an unpleasant thought. I'm not don't want to think about my childhood. I'm going to just slam it away." Whereas he'd probably be better off thinking, "This is just a thought going out with the tide. I'm just going to let it go out with the tide." But Bond being Bond, he has to do something violent with it, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so that's not, I wouldn't recommend that. But like I said, meditation is not stopping thought.
Yeah.
It's again, it's a training awareness and training awareness of your body, but training awareness of the thoughts going
Mm,
by. So when we would be in a meditation class, you know, sometimes there'd be a lot of noises outside
mm,
the meditation hall where we were things. And one time there was like construction going on, and or other times cars going on, or tourists, because it was a bit Drung In was a big tourist spot, so there'd be tourists, walking back and forth. And the meditation teacher would say, you hear the noise outside, note the noise outside, then let the noise outside
mhm,
be, then let the noise outside go. I remember training, listening a lot of times during also during training times, I would listen to YouTube meditation teachers. And there was a very famous monk named Ajahn Brahm. He was actually an Australian Westerner, but he became an ordained monk in Thailand. And to this day, he's teaching. I actually met him once. He was an amazing human being and amazing meditation teacher. And he said when he was training in Thailand, there was construction going on in the monastery that they were in, and the meditation teacher he said that after one of their and they would meditate for 4 hours
Wow.
sometimes. Yeah, I've done it for 3.5. That's about the longest I've ever done. Actually,
Wow.
one time. But they would, be meditating for like 4 hours, and there's all this construction noise going on next door. And the monks, these were young novice monks, and the young monk says, "How can we meditate with the construction? I can't. The construction noise is disturbing my meditation." And the teacher would say, "No, no, no. You're disturbing the noise. The noise is not disturbing you. You're
I
disturbing
get
the noise."
that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, the disturbance is here.
I might
The
not have
noise is
got
out there.
I might not have got it even like 3, 4 years
Yeah,
ago until I did
yeah.
all that reading up about it. And I imagine there will people be watching this or listening to this who are thinking, this sounds like a lot of effort. But actually,
It's
once I practice certain techniques,
yeah,
there are some techniques like the ones we've talked about where I'm just like, how did I even get through a week? Or sometimes even did I get
yeah,
through days without using these techniques? So what would
yeah.
if there are people watching and listening who kind of like are going, right, I'm going to give this a go. What would you recommend as a starting point, Alex?
Um, as a starting point, I mean, what I would say is that if you can find a lot of listen, you don't have to go into a Buddhist monastery or a Buddhist temple and be a Buddhist. Okay?
Okay. That's a good
They
first tip.
don't
Yeah.
care. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care. If there's a meditation class in English going on for the public, they are so happy to share it just as a meditation class. No Buddhist monastery will reject you because you're not Buddhist. They don't,
Okay.
it doesn't make a difference to them. To them, there's like several levels of studying Buddhism. You can come in and just do the meditation and want to learn the tools and techniques, and that's fine. And they will love that you came in to do that. You can do it and then learn the philosophy of Buddhism. What is behind the meditation, and what is the philosophies that created these systems, and that's fine. And I would say the majority of people, Westerners in Buddhist temples, that's what they do. They're there for the meditation. They're there for the philosophy. If they have another religion, and you will have a lot of Buddhist monks saying, "Don't become a Buddhist. Use the practices here to be better at
Mm,
whatever religion that you choose. But you don't have to convert. Proselytizing is a big no-no in
yeah.
Buddhism. That's actually an offense in Buddhism. They
Wow.
do not proselytize. They do not want monks to proselytize. It is not something, even the Buddha said, don't do that. But
What
the
if
Buddha
you
wasn't Buddhist.
so
He
so
was he
so
was
what
teaching stuff. He was teaching the ending of how to end suffering.
so what happens if you don't live? Let's just play devil's advocate. Great first step, but what if you don't live anywhere near a Buddhist monastery?
Okay, so if you don't live near a Buddhist monastery and you can't find a class with a
Mm-hmm.
with a with a trained teacher,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. You can just sit and watch your breath
Okay.
and just pay attention to your breathing. And there's
Mm.
2 points where you can pay attention to. You can pay attention to the air going in and out of the nostrils or your stomach rising and falling. Now, a lot of people
Mm.
they breathe from their chest,
Yeah.
right? And that's generally normal. You really should be breathing.
Yeah.
And one thing Kung Fu teaches you is to breathe. You do what they call abdominal breathing.
Mm.
So if you put your hand on your stomach,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna sit back a little bit so you
Yeah,
can
same.
see this a little better. So if you put your hand on your stomach, I'm gonna
Yeah.
maybe turn to the side, and if you breathe in, you make your belly big as if you're filling your belly full of air, like it's a balloon. When you
Mm-hmm.
breathe out, you suck in the gut. So breathing in, you expand your stomach. Breathing
Mm-hmm.
out, you pull your belly button towards your spine. Breathing in, you make your belly big. Breathing out, you suck in your gut. Now, even if you put your hand on your stomach, that's fine. You practice that. And that's yoga teaches that. Yoga teaches that. Kung
Okay.
Fu teaches that. Tai Chi teaches that. It's called abdominal breathing. And if that's a little too more advanced, the I first went in, and just became a meditator. And then after a few years I studied the philosophy, and then
Right.
after a few years I decided myself, I had no religion, my parents aren't religious, we had no religion growing up. I decided to take it as a religion, and I did what they call entering the door Buddhism. I took precepts. I had the the abbot of the monastery that I was with became my teacher. He took me on as a student. It was a formal ceremony, a formal whole thing going on, and yada yada. I got even a Buddhist name, which I can't even remember what it was. Yeah, but that's here nor there. So yes, now I am a even as a religion, I practice Buddhism as well. But
I,
a religion, that's kind of quasi because it doesn't really mean the same thing as it does in the West. You don't
okay.
need to believe in anything. There's no belief in Buddhism.
Okay.
You ask a monk, believe. So there was a monk who famously said, Buddhists believe in nothing. We do. We practice it. That's getting into a whole nother conversation. I won't
Hmm.
let's get away from that. But again, if you just want to practice the meditation part, for me, Zen Buddhism, Chan Buddhism in Chinese, Zen Buddhism in Japanese, was the perfect door to enter.
Hmm.
And the reason why it's because it's so simple.
Yeah.
You paid attention to the air going in and out of your nostrils, and that is it.
Mm.
You can do it with your eyes open. You can do it with your eyes closed. They prefer to do it with their eyes kind of open and three-quarters closed, just looking down in a general direction.
I
Not,
I think that's a
go
really important point because going back
ahead.
to how I used to picture meditation, and if I'm honest, it's probably still the first thing that comes into my head when people say it. Getting a yoga mat out and doing the lotus position, all that. I meditate while I'm stuck in traffic because
Oh, no, there are
I
monks that do that specifically. They'll go on a city bus and
I
meditate there.
because if there's I there are a few things that stress me out more than traffic. So
Yeah,
I've learned now though, it happened on the way home tonight actually. I was in the car with I gave someone a lift home and they were getting really quite stressed about the traffic. But I was the one
yeah,
driving and I was the one we were and I was like, I just realized that I wasn't breathing the way I should be. So I adjusted my
yeah,
breathing, just sat there behind the steering wheel, and suddenly
yeah,
I was the calm one and they weren't.
yeah. Yeah, no, like I said, I've had monks tell me that they will purposely go into Manhattan, purposely ride a New York City bus or a subway and meditate because it's so chaotic.
Mm.
They said it's easy to meditate here in the temple. Everything's quiet and peaceful and beautiful. Meditate in the New York City street, meditate on Fifth Avenue, walking down Fifth Avenue, do walking meditation in a city street, do a meditation on a city bus. That's when you really, do the training.
Mm.
But like I said, Zen meditation or Chan meditation is very simple in the sense that you just sit. You don't need to sit cross-legged,
No.
like this. You can sit cross-legged, or you can put your hand. Traditionally they will sit cross-legged in half lotus, not full lotus. No, and very few of them actually do full lotus. They'll do like what they call a half lotus when one foot is on top,
Mm.
or they'll just sit regular cross-legged. They'll put one palm in the other just to keep their hands kind of rested on their laps, or you can put them on your knees. Doesn't matter. You can sit in a chair. Doesn't matter. Most of the time when I'm meditating now, I'm lying in bed when I wake up. I'll
Mm.
take the first 15 minutes of my day, I don't get out of bed. I lie there with my hands on my stomach and I just stare at the ceiling and I focus on my breathing. I do it, a lot of times I'll do that.
Mm.
But the most important thing is that you just focus on the breathing.
Mm.
So you know what? This is a good opportunity. Let's do it. Just
Oh
a few
God.
minutes. Just do like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
So
I'm ready. We
find a
didn't
comfortable
we didn't plan
position.
this, but I'm ready for anything. Go for
We're
it.
doing it. We're doing this. Like I said, in Buddhist meditation, there's nothing to believe. You do.
Okay.
You do or do not. There is no
No
try,
try. Yeah.
as Yoda says. So find a comfortable position.
Yeah.
Back should be straight. You know, ideally, if you still sit on the edge of your chair like this, that's even better, right?
I tend to try and so I did a mindfulness class some years ago, and they always said it's a good idea to put your feet flat on the floor. It grounds you. Is that nonsense,
Yep.
or is that
Nope. Perfect.
no?
That's it.
Okay.
Yes, you want your if you're not going to do a lotus position,
Yeah.
if you're sitting in a chair, then you want your feet firmly flat on the
Yeah.
floor,
Got it.
knees at a 90-degree angle,
Yeah.
like that. Back straight. Pretend there's a string pulling your head up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, with the pendant down there, it does look like there's string pulling my head up to the ceiling. Right? Back straight. You put your hand, one hand in the other, put it rest it on your lap, thumbs
Mm-hmm.
touching,
Mm-hmm.
very relaxed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so your elbows are very relaxed, your hands are very relaxed, your back is straight. We're not going to close our eyes. We're going to keep our eyes open, but looking sort of slightly downward
Mm-hmm.
at, just in that general direction. Don't fix on any specific thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just get into that relaxed position.
Mm-hmm.
Once you feel yourself in a good spot, nice and relaxed, arms relaxed, shoulders relaxed, eyes relaxed. Now we're going to move our attention to our breathing.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be breathing in and out through your nose. Your tongue should lightly touch the roof of your mouth, but it doesn't have to. Now I want you to feel air going in and out of the nostrils. Focus on the air going into the nostril. Feel the air coming out of the nostrils. Pick a point in your nose where you feel the air connecting to the side of the nostrils, to the skin of the nostrils. Now just focus on that point of air going in, feeling the air going in and out of the nostrils. Now, as you focus on an in-breath, feel the air going into the nostrils from beginning to end and every point in between. And when you breathe out, feel the air coming out of the nostrils from beginning to end and every point in between. Also notice the point of when your breath changes from an in-breath to an out-breath. You can also notice the point of when your breath changes from an out-breath to an in-breath. And if a thought comes along, notice the thought, acknowledge the thought, let go of the thought. Don't stop the thought, just acknowledge it and say, okay, thought, I'll let you go, and go back to your breathing. If you hear anything outside of you, a noise outside, banging, cars, horn, people talking, just take a note, label it as noise, and go back to your breathing. Don't fight the noise. Just let it be. Oh, there's noise. And go back to your breath. and another thought may come along. And again, we just sort of acknowledge the thinking. And then we go back to our breathing. And let's take a slow, deep breath in and let it all out. And back to where we were. And that's it. So if you extend that, that was about, I don't know, I think 2 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
If you extend that to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, that's, whatever you can spare, whatever moment you can spare, do it on those. And again, do it sitting in your home, do it lying in bed, do it if you're trying to get, if you can't get to sleep at night, do it then. It might literally 50% of the time that you'll end up falling asleep. If you do it in the morning when you first wake up, you know, it's a thing that you can bring anywhere you are in any situation. If you're driving, like you said, and you start doing it while you're driving, you're doing driving meditation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching television, you can if you're so aware that you're watching television, I'm doing television meditation. You're cooking, you're chopping, you're doing chopping meditation. In a lot of Buddhist monasteries, they have, work meditation where you're supposed to do a chore, cooking, cleaning, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And you're meditating, but you turn it into a meditation. Be focused on exactly if you're sweeping, pay attention to how the bristles feel, pay attention to where the debris is going, pay attention to how the air smells, pay attention to the muscles in your body. Another thing I want to bring out is that sometimes when people meditate, they itch,
Mm-hmm.
right? And some meditations saying, well, just let the itch be. But if sometimes that happens and the itch becomes even worse, and you're really focusing on that itch and like, oh my God, my shit, you know, a, a lot of times, when I said that, a lot of the monks would say, well, just scratch. I'm like, is that breaking the meditation? It's like, are you aware you're scratching? Yeah. Then no, you're not breaking the meditation. If it itches, scratch. Why are you killing yourself?
I think that's the key, isn't it? It's like I think some people expect meditation to be this like immediately transforming thing, and if they don't get there immediately, then it hasn't worked. I mean,
Get where?
after the last, the last 2, 3 minutes, however long it was, to be honest, I did
Yeah.
lose, which is rare for me. My husband says that my superhero power is knowing always what time it is. I actually completely lost track of time while
Yeah.
you were doing that.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it was, and
I don't know.
I'm very aware the podcast. But hopefully, people watching and listening to this were having a go at that as well
Yeah.
at the same time. Otherwise, it was dead air for a few minutes. But
Yeah.
that's that's I really do think people should give it a go. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Don't knock it before you've tried it. It's one of those
Yeah.
things though that you don't see the benefit of necessarily immediately.
Yeah.
I'm a total convert, and there's definitely things from this episode which I'm going to be taking away. The different way of doing box breathing, which I hadn't done before. So I found that really useful. Thank you, Alex.
hmm Well, one of the things I want to stress is that you said, "Oh, I don't know if I got there." Where are you getting to?
Yeah, yeah.
There's no place to go to. So if you think meditation is going to get you somewhere, it's not. If you think you're going to achieve something through meditation, you won't. If you think that you're going to gain something with meditation, there's nothing to gain.
Mm.
There's nothing to gain. There's no place to go. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to get from it. There's nothing to achieve. There's no achievement involved in meditation. We're so used to this
Hmm.
achievement-oriented culture that we think even meditation, I got to get somewhere.
Yeah,
One of
yeah,
the
you're right.
funniest one of the funniest New Yorker cartoons I ever saw was a cartoon of a bunch of monks sitting in meditation, and one monk had his fist up saying, "Booyah! Enlightenment! I beat you all, losers!" which if you understand, it's
Totally,
completely.
yeah. I mean, we're so goal orientated as a culture, aren't we? I think
Yeah,
I think that's why James Bond, certainly in the films, he's so rubbish at it because he's always got a mission. He's actually
yeah,
not very good in Fleming books. He's not very
yeah,
good at sitting with his thoughts. He actually gets quite maudlin and melancholy, and
yeah, yeah,
when he doesn't have a mission to engage his thoughts.
yeah,
So I think he's a pretty rubbish meditator. But
yeah,
as we often say in these episodes,
yeah.
as much as we might want to emulate a lot of Bond's qualities, perhaps he should be more mindful and pay more attention to the moment than
Yeah.
the mission.
Yeah. So things I would recommend, if you don't have a class that you can go to, or if there's no Buddhist monastery that offers open meditation, Achan Brahm, Brahm. He has a huge list of wonderful meditations. He's like, again, he's a Western monk in Thailand. I think he lives in Australia. I think he's British originally. He's English originally from England. Loves football. And also any books by Thich Nhat Hanh were very transformative to me. That was
Mhm.
personally the writings of Thich Nhat Hanh were probably some of the best that I've ever read. There's a book called Anger that was completely transformative for me in
Mm.
terms of dealing with anger as well. So anything by Thich Nhat Hanh is great. Ajahn Brahm's YouTube videos are very good. So those are two
Yeah.
very, those were what would help me sort of get into it, to break into it, because they're very simple and easy to understand. So anyway,
No, thank you
yeah,
for that, Alex. I know you say the goal is not the whole point is not having goals.
there's no
Um,
goal, there's nothing
but
to achieve.
I definitely feel more relaxed than when we
Yeah,
started this
yeah.
podcast.
The point of meditation is the meditation.
Okay, that's it.
You breathe, that's it.
Just breathe. There you
Just
go.
breathe. Just
We could
breathe.
have just summarized the whole podcast in two
Yeah.
words. Just breathe.
Just breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe.
And be aware of yourself breathing. I
Be
think
aware that you're breathing and be
the
aware that.
thing that made the penny drop for me in learning about this stuff was that part about attention, because so
Mhm.
often I let my attention wander and that's
Yeah.
fine, but often
You're training attention.
I'll
That's what you're
fix
doing.
exactly, but I'll fixate attention on things that make me feel stressed. So I'm like, okay, actually focus on physiological things, focus on
Yeah.
breathing, focus on where your feet are on the floor, and that sort of thing. And it does bring you back, doesn't it?
Mhm. Very good. That's it. That's all it is. Just breathe.
Just breathe.